here. I'm glad to share with you some of the perspectives of TPM this afternoon. I'm going to focus on how TPM can be a means of improving the profitability of any business. So I would request you to keep your questions and forward it to us. And then once I complete the presentation, I would try and answer as many questions as it is possible. So kindly bear with the time lag of the slides changing over. So there might be a pause in between. So which is to get you on board on the slides that I'm using right now. So I have titled this webinar as Financial Perspective of TPM, a New Paradigm, just to give you a 30,000 feet perspective. But TPM has been in vogue for quite a long time in this country. Different companies have been using TPM in a different purposes. So the idea of this presentation is to give you a kind of 30,000 feet perspective to figure out when and how TPM can be effectively utilized for taking advantage of throughput improvement in any organization. So let's look into a reality check of how we are currently using TPM. And I'm sure that some of the audience around probably might not have been introduced to TPM before. So I would like to probably cover some of the basics of TPM as I go along. So such of those who already know TPM have been extensively using it probably may get a different perspective when I'm going to cover some of these basics of TPM. So I would like to take up what is the business relevance of lean management. Because lean has been here for quite some time, and TPM of course becomes a subset of the lean. So I like to walk you through a few perspectives how lean is really linking with the CEO's agenda. As you could see in the slide number 6, what is the business relevance of lean? I attempted to represent this in the form of a tree diagram covering the cause and effect relationship. If you look at the left extreme where the profitable growth is the main objective of any business model, and if you see the means through which the profitable growth can happen is achieving the customer preference. But how do we achieve the customer preference? There are 4 factors, as you could see, which are contributing to the customer preference. One of them is the on-time in full quantity delivery, as it is called OTIF delivery. Second aspect is zero defects. That means the products are free from any defects and they are first time right. And then the customer perceives value for money. This has been a quite debatable kind of concept. What do you really mean by value for money? And then the last item, which is the after sales service. Many products today require after sales service, although few of them may not require. But customer preference is seen by these 4 different deliverables of the organization. Now if you take the value for money and then drill down further, you will find the lowest cost producer who is conscious of the creating value to the customer has got a leverage over his competition in terms of providing higher value for money to the customer. If you further drill down the lowest cost producer as an objective, you will find that unless otherwise the organization continuously eliminates waste from the system, it can never become a lowest cost producer. So from this we see that A profitable growth being the ultimate objective of any organization, it ends up with the waste elimination as a continuous means of improvement. Looking back into the traditional historical manufacturing system, this slide number 7, what I am trying to depict is a typical factory which has the legacy of Ford manufacturing system. If you see the last 100 years of history, every organization, particularly the manufacturing companies, have created a very complex layout where the manufacturing manufacturing machines are being laid out at different locations. As you could see, there is an enormous amount of material movement which is ultimately leading to a poor efficiency. So taking this forward, many organizations in India particularly wanted to pick up the toolkit and then apply them. If you could see probably here I have shown somebody feel that if I apply Six Sigma I would be all right, and someone feel that 5S if I apply then I will be all right. Someone feel that I am doing TQM. So somehow over the period of last 3 decades, India has become more obsessed with using the tools, and then we had a fancy of looking at what is going to be the next tool that is going to come up. So instead of looking at why we are using the tool and what is the power of the tool and where it is really taking us forward, we have become more tool specific initiatives. So one of the popular Japanese consultant, Mr. Furuhashi, has once said that India has become a tool-holic country. As we have got the workaholic, we have got alcoholic, become tool-holic. So most of the time the means have become the objective rather than the business importance is considered and the power of the tool is understood and applied. So this is the current scenario. Before I could get on to TPM and its relevance, which I am going to talk about today, I thought that it is very important to appreciate that we have been using many tools over the period of time, but we need to understand at this point in time which tool has got what power and when and where it has to be used in what sequence is extremely important. So in this presentation I would like to share some of my thoughts of how we can keep the business financial objective in mind and then choose the right kind of intervention as we go along. So in the next slide, I have just shown how the lean elephant is being looked at. The original thought process of Toyota production system had various elements, and since lean is coming from Japan, unlike the Six Sigma which came from the Western thinkers, the way in which the whole tool has been structured. For example, if you look at Six Sigma, it clearly says DMAIC as the framework: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And each one of the phases of the DMAIC, what kind of a tool to be used and how the systematic problem solving has to progress. Unlike those kind of tools, unfortunately, lean is the kind of an unstructured approach at this point in time. As you could see from this visual, someone feels that value stream mapping is lean. Someone feels that Kanban is lean and the Heijunka is lean and so on and so forth. So it is more or less people, 5 blind men trying to figure out how the elephant is and what it is all about. So one of the reason probably I felt that we need to bring in clarity in the framework of Lean, which is similar to DMAIC. So I wrote a book, Enigma of Lean. I would request you to have a look at it. It is under publication right now. So very soon it will be available. In the meantime, if anyone wishes to understand how the Armour approach, which I proposed, which is a systematic way of picking up your current manufacturing system or service system as a value stream, and then you can figure out what is the potential that you have in your current value stream to improve your profitability. So the message that I'm trying to convey is that we will have to move away from the tool-specific interventions to more business solution-specific interventions. So the tool has its own limitation and power, but it is extremely important to understand what is that the organization needs is what actually I'm trying to propose. So in the case of TPM, I would like to bring in some more deeper perspective as we go along. So in this illustration that as you could see in slide number 11, if you really ask me in the high-end understanding of Lean, it is about waste elimination. Now the problem is definition of waste, although Taiichi Ohno attempted to define 7 waste, but it goes far beyond those definitions because one of the problem many industries which are having a traditional manufacturing system are finding it extremely difficult to define what. So I'm just trying to propose few perspectives by which the waste sensitivity in the organization can be enhanced. So as we go along, I would like to talk about it a little more in detail. So moving forward, before we could get on to the TPM perspective, I would like to give a perspective of the Lean principles. So as you could see in this visual, there are 5 perspectives, I like to call it as principles, in looking at your own organization with a different kind of lens. The first step is specify the values. Now every business model is at the end of the day is delivering a product or service which ultimately adds value to the customer. So it's extremely important to figure out what is the value creation we are doing to the customer. Supposing I'm using a lighting fixture which is used for illuminating my office, it is adding value in terms of giving me a sense of satisfaction of the ambience, and it also gives me a clear visibility while I'm working in my office. So it is very important to understand what is the value proposition that is delivered to the customer. If I'm running a restaurant, for example, and in a enjoy to stay for a while. So the step number 1 is identifying the values that system is delivering. The second step is identify and create a value stream. Now the whole organization is structured with a certain set of business processes. So these business processes are interacting with each other to deliver a particular value to the customer. Now, before we could get on to evaluating the efficiency and effectiveness of the value stream, Out of the 7 hours, probably the whole thing would have taken only about half an hour or 40 minutes. So for 40 minutes value addition, you stay there for 7 hours. So that means the value is not really flowing there for various reasons. So once we understood the step number 3, the step number 4 is talking about whether the pull production is happening or the push production is happening. So most of the organization, it is all the push system. We have created so much of fragmented process steps. With the result, each one does their job and pushes to the next person. So there is no total accountability for the flow to take place from raw material to finished goods. The step number 5 is striving for perfection, which is essentially having understood the current flow related issues. We are trying to figure out how we will be able to move towards the perfection over a period of time. So this is the lean principle that very important to understand before we could see the various tools that are fitting into achieving the end objective of the organization. So I would like to bring another perspective, the theory of constraint. The reason why I am bringing this subject of theory of constraint here, because there is always a feeling that lean competes with the theory of constraint competes with lean, and so on and so forth. Of course, the theory of constraint says that in every value stream, there is bound to be a few bottlenecks. It could be one bottleneck, or it can be, once that bottleneck is removed, it moves to the another bottleneck, and so on and so forth. Actually, the theory of constraint is helping you to find out where the bottleneck is, and the lean does the same thing by through your line balancing diagram, where you figure out that there is a particular process which is really contributing for the ineffective flow that is happening across the value stream. So it is extremely important that if I can remove the bottleneck, I debottleneck the whole system, I will be able to focus on the flow of the material to finished goods. And many a times organizations take up TPM programs where there are 100 machines are there. I may probably shortlist to 5 or 10 of them in the context of how critical for those machines for my manufacturing system, but it is essentially is not, many times we miss the bottleneck machines and focus on them. So in summary, the traditional manufacturing system is like islands of a lake, as I have shown in this illustration. There are many different processes which are working independently in the value stream, not as a whole system. Something like a human body may have several systems like digestive system, neuro systems, motor systems, and so on. Are they working cohesively as an integrated system is what we are really looking at. Unless otherwise they are not working as an integrated system, the raw material to finished goods flow does not happen very effectively. With the result, most of the organizations are involved in point optimization of trying to pick a process and make it more efficient. With the result, they increase the capacity of that particular process step, but essentially not achieving the value flowing through across the entire processes. So we are aiming at creating a river. So from the various islands of process excellence, Lean is essentially trying to create a flow. With the result, the water does not get stagnated anywhere. So that's what we are really trying to do. So having said that, how we are trying to create an ultimate factory where the raw material will keep moving across the value stream, irrespective of whether it is a service organization or whether it's a manufacturing organization. There is no bottleneck in between the processes. So the throughput increase, as it is called, throughput has got a different connotation for different people. Someone feels that throughput is the number of units I produced per unit time, but in reality throughput really means that my sales price minus material cost, which the financial accounting system computes as contribution, is what we are really looking for. That means my selling price going up and material costs remaining the same is what we are really trying to play in this game. So having said that, let us get on to the TPM specific perspectives. Now we have said we want to improve the profitability, as we could see from this visual. Now profitability is reduced by certain profit leakages. And if you see, there are essentially 4 leakage points. Let's look at each one of them. One is the material losses, which is essentially how material utilization is very effective. Second is the transformation losses. The transformation here means how my value stream is converting my raw material into finished goods. Third is my equipment related losses. That means I have made certain capital investments and expecting that the machines are supposed to run at certain level of efficiency, but they are not running. Now if you really look at the traditional manufacturing philosophy, people felt that if the machine is running maximum number of hours, I'm running my plant very efficiently, because I'm coming from the British philosophy based manufacturing system, where the people felt the utilization ratio of the machines are showing up the importance of how well we are using the equipment. So what people do, ask the individual machine operators and the supervisors to produce maximum possible in that particular stage. So with the result, the inventory gets piled up because it's a push system essentially. Machine utilization ratio has to be 98%. That means I have to run the machine all the time. But whatever I produced as a component goes to work in process stores, and God knows when it will become a finished goods. So the financial accounting system, which defined the cost management, has driven certain behavior in the manufacturing system, certain metrics through which the people are assessed, has led to certain kind of a point optimization and gave a notional feeling that our overhead costs are getting distributed on an individual component basis. So the fourth aspect of the profit loss is because the category called management losses. Now what do you mean by management losses? There are so many decisions are being taken in the organization in terms of the planning system, procurement system, supply chain, choice of machine, choice of tooling. So there are quite a number of decision making happens at the tactical level management as well as the strategic level management, which also lead to a significant amount of profit leakage. Now considering this perspective, we are looking at how we could optimize these losses. Now let us focus on one of the losses that we are talking about. We are talking about material losses in TPM, except one aspect of TPM addresses the material loss. Transformation losses to a large extent are addressed by TPM. Machine related losses, unless otherwise we take an integrated approach, probably we may choose a machine which has got nothing to do with the value stream optimization, and we might apply TPM to get an emotional feeling that we have brought in lot of improvements. Now, as you could see in the next visual, which is showing that a company which has taken 99 to 2003, material loss, transformation loss, equipment related loss, and management related losses have been captured. And as you could see, the equipment losses have been brought down significantly. As you could see in the green color bar, which is showing you that over a period of time, a systematic application of TPM has brought down to a certain extent the material losses as well as the equipment losses. But you don't see the material losses are significant. Sorry. And the transformation losses are almost remaining the same. So it's extremely important to understand how we are relating TPM with the various losses. Having said that, let us deep dive a little more in detail about the TPM, its traditional perspective, and what kind of perspective I am proposing for the Indian industries. Now, the first lesson in TPM, as anyone would like to learn, TPM is not a technology. It is purely partially a methodology, and it's more of a culture. Now, what this particular visual is showing, that we have an operator operating a machine, and thanks to the traditional manufacturing organization structure, we created a maintenance department which is supposed to know more about the machine. So the operator has got least amount of ownership about the machine that he is using, and he will use it, and the maintenance department will fix it. So having divided the responsibility between I will make it and you will fix it, has created a different kind of cultural value of respecting that piece of equipment. With the result, the maintenance philosophy is that whenever the machine breaks down, we will try and fix it. That means it is created a kind of a reactive culture. That means if the machine breaks down, the maintenance department will fix it. Now, the TPM philosophy, we are trying to say that it is not I use it and you fix it, we will all jointly maintain it. So that means if you really look at this philosophy, it is more of a culture which leads to a different kind of a system rather than the kind of an attitude towards the equipment. Now, I would like to present an analogy to this philosophy. As you could see in this illustration, the human body is like a machine, and the user of the machine is the person himself. Now, I can take two attitudes here, that I will use my body for my function, and someone else will fix it when I have some problem. That could be, I can say my wife is deciding what food I need to eat. So my health is decided by my wife, so I have no responsibility. Alternatively, I can say I don't know anything about my body because I don't understand the anatomy and the functionality of different parts of my body. So I will continue to abuse it as long as I wish, and when it breaks down, I will go to the doctor who knows about my body better, and then he will tell me how to fix it. Or I might say that my dietitian is supposed to tell me what is the right diet for me. Probably half the time I may not be meeting those suggestions. Ultimately, I can blame the dietitian for what is going wrong. So, in essence, if I say that my body is an asset for me and I need to look after it, so if I have to look after it, then I am the first person coming to know whether I am really abusing my body or not. So that means the moment I am going to take the responsibility of, that doesn't mean that I will not use the resources around me for the continuous maintenance of my body as a machine. So the TPM culture essentially says that the operator of the machine is the owner. So since day in and day out he is operating the machine, he is the first person come to know whether there is anything likely to go wrong in the machine. And doctor here is my maintenance mechanic. It doesn't mean that he doesn't stop existing, but he has a role to play. And the wife's role is equivalent to the supervisor, who is supposed to supervise the production and so on. And the dietitian, like the process expert who has designed the tools and pictures and whatnot, who can be of some help to me. So the TPM philosophy, if you may like to appreciate, all the four people are coming together and taking the responsibility of the machine, which is the asset for the functioning of the organization. So having said that, the culture is part of the TPM. If you look at this particular illustration, shows that the TPM is aiming for more productivity. If you may like to look at the lean perspective or TPM perspective, improved quality, less inventory so that my working capital comes down, and my organization responds faster, as you could see on the right extreme on the green color. These are the final business results that one is looking for. If you see the various boxes which are showing that the various tools like SMED or SPCT, Six Sigma, autonomous maintenance, Kanban and whatnot, there are n number of things are ultimately working in an integrated manner to produce these four objectives. But if you really look at the scope of TPM, as I put a box there, which is talking about quality, integration, planned maintenance, autonomous maintenance, equipment improvement and so on. So it's extremely important for every organization to understand what is the scope of the TPM and how this is going to play a role in the overall value stream improvement is extremely important. In the absence of that, it becomes more as a fad of just learning a new tool and applying them and getting a notional feeling, ending up in a point optimization of a machine where we increase the capacity of the machine which has got no ultimate throughput value. Interestingly, as going forward, I am also going to talk about it a little bit. SMED is considered to be a separate tool, single minute exchange of dice. Now, unfortunately, the scope of TPM does not cover SMED. When I am going to talk about the 6 losses which we are aiming at in TPM, few losses are not covered in the traditional TPM approach. When I am converting a machine to a lean manufacturing system, and if I am not going to address the SMED part, which is going to reduce the changeover time, I am not really creating a flexibility in my manufacturing system. With the result, I will be able to go for multimodal manufacturing scenario at a later date. So it's extremely important to understand that SMED also have to form part of the TPM initiative. That's the reason that SSA created a separate methodology for how to do SMED. How to do SMED part of the TPM. So going back to Nakajina's TPM, as a typical Japanese way of saying, TPM is productive maintenance carried out to all employees. Unfortunately, the definition of TPM does not give the kind of a perspective that we are looking at. So the target could be productivity, quality, and multi-skilling of the operator. So PQ, CD, M could be the objective of the TPM. So once you are starting a TPM initiative, we would like to set certain KPIs. So it could be a zero breakdown, it is a few losses, zero defects, zero accident, minimum life cycle cost. So let us look at how we can bring in the financial perspective. So traditionally there are 8 pillars of TPM, which is shown in this illustration. Different organizations adopt a different kind of interpretation of these pillars. I'm not going to do all of them. I would like to touch upon the office TPM little bit. It's not been very well appreciated. And how do we interpret what do you mean by office TPM, and what way office TPM has got anything to do with the overall profitability of an organization. I just want to touch upon that a little bit in today's deliberation. So some of the KPI that we are looking for, how do I bring down the breakdown cost, spare parts cost management, am I reducing the number of operators, that the yield productivity goes up, the cost of the consumables are coming down, the cost of energy is coming down, and the material utilization is improving. It's extremely important to evaluate the current KPIs and then suitably decide what is the target KPI that we are looking for. It is very important to launch any TPM initiative in the organization. So getting into a little bit on the financial perspective of TPM. If you look at the life cycle cost of any particular equipment, it comprises of the cost of capital, cost of operation, cost of maintenance, and cost of disposal. Now, the reason that why we undertake reduce service cost is one of the objectives. More than that, the throughput improvement of the value stream is a more important objective of TPM rather than bringing down the unit cost of the traditional understanding of costing structure. So the next slide shows you how the big losses, 6 losses are being addressed. Like for example, the top one is the available time. If assuming that 8 hours is the shift of my company, the available operating time is the available time minus failure time, which is essentially the time taken for setup and adjustments, which are generally considered to be the part of the manufacturing process, but they do contribute to the significant amount of losses. Then actual operating time available is the machine could not be run at the design speed for a variety of reasons, and invariably most of the process manufacturing system, when you look at the machine, they are not maintained so well. With the result, we are not able to run the machine at the design capacity. And there are many idling and minor stoppages which do happen for a variety of small reasons. The root causes can be easily fixed but invariably that the loss of production is not accounted because the system does not capture this data. So finally, the effective operating time is whatever we produce, all of them are not of good quality. There's something of them, some of them are being reprocessed because of certain defects in the manufactured product. And then we also have a startup losses at the beginning. So essentially the understanding of the TPM philosophy is very important to see how these 6 losses can be addressed. And if you really look at some of the financial losses which I attempted to present it in front of you, if you see in this visual, you find different countries, UK, France, Italy and so on. The maintenance expenditure as a percentage of the turnover, it's about 5% in the UK, and the lowest could be Spain, 3.6%. So you will find that every company loses about 5% of their turnover because of the lack of attention to the equipment capabilities. But this estimate is not taken in keeping the lean as a perspective, because this is not based on the throughput losses and the lost business opportunity that could be significantly higher than these figures. But this is just showing you how much the industry is losing. Looking at the next slide, you find 14 billion euros is the annual spend of equipment maintenance in the UK. It is twice as the UK trade deficit. You can see the magnitude of the country loss because of the equipments are not kept up at the right condition. 3 times the value of the new plant investment. So the total capital investment in the UK, 3 times of that are being spent only for losses related to poor maintenance of the equipments. So it is extremely important to appreciate that it is a significant amount that goes out of the system. If you look at the next visual, which shows on your right hand side an unsatisfactory maintenance practice, which is the traditional system of maintenance department maintaining the equipment. 79% is the breakdown, 17% of the time goes in preventive, and predictive is virtually negligible. I don't know, in the developing countries it may be still more alarming. But the satisfactory maintenance practice on the left hand side, as you could see, is 50% is preventive and 40% is the breakdown, and the predictive is 10%. So what it shows is the shift in the culture progressively increases the attention to these equipments in the TPM perspectives. If you can look at this particular slide, which shows that the electrical electronic industry has got the least amount of maintenance related expenditure, which varies from 1% to probably 4%. But moving towards the right, you will find machinery fabricators have got 4 to 6%. And if you right extreme, if you see transportation, mining and those kind of industries, the cost of maintenance is more than 12 to 14%. So it's extremely important to appreciate that the heavier the equipment is, more complex the equipment is, more it is neglected. So in fact, many of the mining industries have taken only the asset management as the only initiative across the organization, because there is nothing being manufactured in the mine. So if the equipments are in a working condition, obviously the throughput of mine will be the maximum. So it is very important to understand what is our value stream and what is the value addition of our equipment is very important before we could apply TPM in a systematic company-wide manner. Many organizations feel that TPM is something is a very short-term result producing initiative. As you could see here, it goes through a pilot rollout and phase 1, phase 2, etc. You can see the graph showing initial breakdowns per year is about 4,800, which comes down to 110 over a period of 2 years. So it takes a pretty long time for the TPM to take root in the organization before we could bring it as a second nature of the system to take care of the TPM philosophy. So a little bit on the overall equipment effectiveness rationale behind it. It's very interesting to see there are three factors which are contributing to the losses. One is the machine is not available to produce, which could be due to planned, unplanned breakdowns, lunch, tea breaks, material operator not available, and so on and so forth. So that is one thing which is eating away the profitability. Second aspect is the machine available but not running at full capacity. So the rationale behind the overall equipment effectiveness as a measure is something is I've got a very strong rationale behind it, which needs to be understood. So the second losses of the 6 losses, which is the setup losses minus stoppages and machine not running at the full speed because of a variety of reasons. This is the second aspect which is taking away the throughput of any particular equipment. And the machine available, but machine is running at capacity, but what it produces may not be saleable. So the startup losses and scrap and rework is accounted in the third element of the overall equipment effectiveness. So it's very important to appreciate that the 6 losses which have been defined earlier, they are being accounted in the overall equipment effectiveness in the 3 attributes that we are talking about. So many organizations have not clearly defined the data to be collected, bringing the 6 losses into the account and apportioning them in the right way in the OEE calculation. With the result, the OEEs are wrongly interpreted, and then they don't really get certain benefits which will accrue if the OEE is correctly understood. So just quickly run through the, for want of time, I will run through a few more slides. Of course, we have seen OEE with the 3 attributes which are accounting for different aspects of the losses. So what is most important is whether the data collected is accounted at the right category is very important to understand. So I've just given a small calculation here to illustrate a clear understanding of how availability can be calculated. So such as those who would like to have a look at this presentation, you can send a request and then we will mail the PDF copy to you. So in terms of the performance, how do we calculate the performance? In terms of the industrial engineering information available in terms of the hourly production and actual production, or whether you would like to consider the speed of the machines, etc., may vary from company to company. Of course, the simplest of all the 3 attributes of overall equipment effectiveness is the quality ratio, which is fairly straightforward. How many of them are first time right and how many quantity we have produced. So in essence, we are talking about 3 attributes in the overall equipment effectiveness as a profit leakage indicator, and this illustration shows that if you have got an availability problem, you ask 5 times why it's not available, it's breakdown or changeover and adjustment. Then you drill down, breakdown, why it is breakdown. Then you find the elapsed bearing and leaking seals and whatnot. And then why this is leaking because of vibration. why there is a vibration, it's a poor material, poor asset care, and so on and so forth. So essentially, drilling down the root cause analysis is almost similar to any systematic problem solving methodology. But what is most important is how we are identifying the machine for application of TPM, and how we are collecting the data to define the overall equipment effectiveness is the key for the success of the kind of a result that we are looking for. So I would like to bring another perspective of the overall equipment effectiveness. As you could see from this illustration, there are three kinds of OEEs called floor-to-floor OEE. Means that if I take one machine in my entire value stream and then I am trying to figure out what is the overall equipment effectiveness, that is called floor-to-floor OEE. That is only showing me the point optimization capability of my value stream. But when you look at the second level of OEE, which is shown as 55% in this case, is called door-to-door OEE. What I mean by door-to-door OEE is that I may have a product line running in my factory which has got about 10 machines. So there may be 10 processes which has got 10 machines which are converting my raw material into finished goods. For example, if I am manufacturing an engine assembly, I may have 100 machines which are producing the engine assembly at the end of the day, engine components at the end of the day. So if I would like to see the overall equipment effectiveness of my entire plant, what the raw material came inside and what went out as a finished goods, that becomes the door-to-door OEE. So a door-to-door OEE is really showing not only the effectiveness of one machine in my system, it is showing the entire efficacy of my value stream. And if you go one step higher, the value stream OEE is showing the supplier capability also into consideration. How my supply chain is really able to feed material into my system, and how my outbound logistics is able to reach my finished goods to my customer. So in other words, it is extremely important to appreciate what I said in the beginning of my presentation, that if you look at from the lean perspective, you get a different kind of result for the organization. When you look at TPM as a tool for improving the equipment effectiveness, you get a different kind of results in the organization. So it's extremely important. It is not the OEE of the equipment is important. The OEE of the value stream is important at the end of the day. So it is something like, as Stephen Covey said, before you can choose the right tree from the forest, you have to choose the right forest. So it is very important to look at the entire value stream, understand the value stream capability, and find out what is your bottleneck, and then in the bottleneck what is the role of the equipment that is playing, and then what is the current overall equipment effectiveness of that equipment, and if I am going to remove that equipment capacity, then the overall value stream effectiveness will improve. So this is the most important aspect that I want to convey. Unlike we are applying TPM across the organization. So I am saying this is because some of the corporate have chosen TPM as the only initiative for improving their organizational effectiveness. So that leads to some kind of unbalanced kind of improvement, which ultimately does not improve the throughput of the organization. So in summary, as I mentioned in the beginning, there is a material related aspects which also talks about availability, performance and quality. OEE can be applied for transformation losses. OEE can be applied for equipment losses. OEE also can be applied for the management effectiveness as well. So in other words, JPIM is promoting the idea of extending the overall equipment effectiveness as a measure, not only for improving the efficacy of the machine, but also improving the efficacy of the entire value stream. So this is just showing you the kind of result that many companies have achieved. You take, for example, clothing companies. The figures are shown here. 707 breakdowns have been brought down to 15 in 2.5 years. So this particular chart is showing the different kind of industry, like for example, air conditioners industry has brought down the breakdown from 250 to 5 over a period of 6 years. They improved productivity almost 100 to 200%. So they doubled their productivity over a period of 6 years. And the overall equipment effectiveness from 65%, they have brought up to 88% in 6 years. So what it is showing is that TPM is not one of the tool. It has got a power to its own extent. But if the whole value stream is not understood and TPM is applied in a wrong equipment, it may give a notional feeling that things are improving, but it will not ultimately contribute to the organizational throughput. So lastly, the TPM related targets here just gives us an illustration here. There can be a target related to overall equipment effectiveness. It can be in terms of breakdown per month, lead time, and loss of accidents, and so on and so forth. So it is very important to add one more metric here, which is showing by improving the overall equipment effectiveness as the throughput of the organizational value stream has improved or not. If the organizational value stream throughput is not increasing, it is not really going to be of any use. So I just want to, before closing the presentation, I just want to show you how SSA is offering this solution, is what is shown in this particular illustration. So there is a recognized space where the entire value stream is studied, and then the breakdown and other aspects are considered. There is a recognized space of looking at the value stream and selecting the right kind of equipment that is required for selection of application of TPM. Then SSA conducts an executive enrollment workshop where involving the management to appreciate the TPM, how it can contribute to the profitability. And then there is an orientation phase of formation of teams, cross-functional, and then EC workshop at the shop floor. Equipment condition evaluation workshops are being carried out. So there are 3 stages in which SSA consults on TPM. One is the phase 1, which is the workshop 1, and then a detailed data collection is templates are set and the data is collected